Welcome to Most Myself. I'm Michelle Madrid. And if you're here with me inside of this episode, I first want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And I also want to add this. As you sit inside of this space with me, I want to emphasize that you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be strong right now. You don't have to be handling it. You just have to be here, present with yourself. So settle in, because this is a space for women, especially women in midlife, who perhaps are beginning to feel that quiet, sometimes not so quiet shift, where the life you've been holding together so well no longer feels like it fully holds you. Where something inside of you is asking, perhaps, is this it? Is this mine? Where did I go? Where did I go? And if that's you, I want to emphasize and assure you that you are in the right place. Because here we are not focused on becoming more of who the world expects us to be. We're focused on coming home to who you already are and living as most yourself, the fullest expression of who you are. And so today, I want to share something with you that is very, very personal. And it's also tender. And it is a very intimate story. It's a story that I had to do the work of unboxing, unpacking, exploring in order to understand a behavior pattern that had been with me since childhood. One that for a really long time I didn't fully understand myself. But now I see it clearly for what it was. It's a moment that revealed just how deeply I had learned to handle everything, even at the cost of myself. And so, as I share this story with you today, I want you to just notice what stirs in you. I want you to notice what might be rising up within you. No fixing, no analyzing, no judging, just listening. So I'm going to begin this story in a recovery room. Several years ago, before I was a mom, I remember waking up from surgery and noticing that the room I was in smelled like cold metal and antiseptic. And I also remember waking up very nauseous, disoriented, and carrying this strange mix of shame and confusion in my body. And I quickly turned onto my side and began vomiting into a plastic bowl while a nurse held my hair back. I was in my very early 30s. I had a #1 morning show on TV. I had a master's degree in broadcast journalism, a career in television news that I had worked towards since I was a girl, because it was my dream since I was in 7th grade. In fact, my school yearbook from the 7th grade had a photo of me and a caption that read how I dreamed of being a television news anchor and reporter someday. And there I was, living the dream. I mean, from the outside, as a newswoman climbing the ladder of success, it seemed that I had made it. I was more than capable of realizing my dreams, of delivering the news to viewers every single morning, of having a top-rated show. I was put together, I was trusted, I was liked. And yet, there I was, in a surgical recovery room, because I had chosen to let a man alter my body so I could stay relevant on television. Now, it was a choice other newswomen on competing stations were making at the time, and so I made that decision too. It's the price you gotta pay. I remember telling myself. So on that day when my surgeon walked into the recovery room, he didn't ask how I was feeling. Instead, he said, the nurses tell me you're barfing up bears. I've got a shot for that. And then, without even asking, he pulled aside my gown and gave me an injection in my bottom. And as he turned to leave, he said, by the way, you're a size D now. And I remember thoughts scrambling in my head. I was thinking inside of my very foggy brain, wait, no, what? That doesn't make sense at all. That's not what I asked for. I had been so clear in my initial appointment with that doctor. I had been so specific as to what I wanted, so articulate in the explaining of what I wanted. And then the doctor paused and said, the nurses told me to stop because you asked for a C. And then, but I watch you every morning on the news. And I told them, hell, she can handle it. She can handle it. I lay there, feeling violated, embarrassed in front of the nurse who stood there next to me in silence. And I remember thinking, what does it mean when someone else decides what you can handle? What does it mean when your voice is clear and yet still it's overridden? You know, I never said anything to that doctor. I never said anything to him. I showed no outward rage toward his malpractice. I just went numb. I went invisible. I told myself it was my fault, and I just have to figure out a way to handle it. I told myself that I'd have to handle the D cup that I'd been left with. The D cup I didn't ask for. And I remember taking the bandages off at my home in my bathroom 2 days post-surgery and feeling as if I tipped over. I felt like a caricature of myself. And I was standing in front of the mirror and I looked at myself in the mirror and I told myself, you got to handle this, girl. You got to handle this, girl. I told myself the same thing when I went back to work and I wrapped my breast so tight so that no one would notice just how large I'd suddenly become. I told myself I could handle the backaches that followed because I was carrying a chest that weighed heavily on my small frame. It was crippling. You can handle it. You gotta handle it. I told myself over and over and over and over again. But here's what took me years to understand. Handling it didn't begin in that recovery room. It began long before, years before that moment. Because, truth be told, I had been handling it my entire life. Handling being the good girl, handling being adaptable, handling being the one who performs, handling being enough or trying to be more than enough. Because I learned early that belonging wasn't guaranteed, that love could be lost, that I had to earn my place in this world. And so I became capable, I became high functioning, easy, pleasing, impressive. I became the woman who could walk into any room and say, "Oh, don't worry, I've got it," even when I didn't. And I have a feeling that you might know this woman too. Because we are praised for being the women who can handle it. We handle the kids, we handle the marriage, we handle our aging parents, the career, the grief, the transitions, the quiet disappointments we don't talk about, the hurts we keep hidden. We handle it all. And the world looks at us and the world says, "Oh, she's so strong. She's amazing. She's got it all together." But what no one asks is this: what's it costing you to keep handling everything? What is the cost of that? Because handling it is not the same as living it. Handling it most often means that you override your truth, that you silence your needs, you disconnect from your body, you abandon yourself quietly, efficiently, convincingly. And over time, that creates an ache. And it's not always loud at first, but it is persistent. It's that low hum that says, something isn't right here. Something just isn't right. Handling it costs you your voice, your intuition, your sense of self. It cost you the relationship you have with you. And this is what I see over and over and over again with women in midlife. They are not breaking down. They are waking up. They're waking up. They are waking up in their own version of a recovery room. And they're looking around at their lives thinking, how did I get here? And more importantly, why does this not feel like mine? You see, my body didn't feel like mine. And I don't think it had for a very, very long time. Not until I started acknowledging what was aching and asking what it needed. Truth was, I never believed I belonged to myself. I had been a child whose little body had been removed from one family into another family and into another family. From biological family to foster family to adoptive family. I had no sense of agency. My behavior patterns were rooted in a belief that I had to handle whatever life brought my way, good or bad. No voice, no choice, just handle it. And recognition of this ache was absolutely essential for me to begin to break free and free myself forward in my life. And this is where everything began to shift for me. Not when I tried to fix it, and not when I tried to think my way out of it, not when I tried to handle it better, but when I stopped, when I paused and allowed myself to feel it. That ache, what it had cost me in the past, what it was costing me in the present, and what it would cost me in the future if I continued holding it in, avoiding it, running from it, this belief that I had to handle it all. Because the ache that we feel is not the problem. The ache is the message. I'm going to say that again. The ache that you feel is not the problem. It is the message. The ache carries a whole lot of information. It is your body, your truth, your deeper self trying to get your attention, knocking from the inside, saying, hey, pay attention to me. But most of us have been trained to skip that part, to override it, to bulldoze over it, to push past it, to handle it. So instead of bulldozing past it, ignoring it, I began doing something different, and this was life-changing. When I would feel that tightening, that discomfort, that sense of dis-ease in my body, that knowing, I would pause and I would ask, what is this ache trying to tell me? And then I asked, what does this ache need? Because what the ache needs is what I need. And then what is one small, doable step I can take that honors that need? This was not about a life overhaul. This wasn't about burning everything down in a day. It was about taking one kind, doable step. One. And that is how I began to come back to myself, one small, loving step at a time. And that ultimately led to taking my voice back, my choice back, and my agency back by having those implants removed and feeling myself fully in my body again, returning to myself in that way. And now I want you to know that I didn't become a different woman overnight, but I did become a woman who listened. I became a woman who noticed. I became a woman who stopped overriding her own knowing. Through those steps of feeling the ache, naming what that ache needs, and taking one small doable step forward. I became a woman who no longer needed to prove that she could handle everything in order to belong, to be loved, to be accepted. And I got to tell you what, that is where I found my sense of freedom. And I've never looked back. So if you're listening right now and something in you feels tired, or something feels stretched inside of you, or you feel quietly disconnected, I want to offer you this. You do not have to handle it anymore. You don't have to keep overriding what you feel. You can start right here, right now. Feel the ache, name the need, take one doable, beautiful small step forward. Because even the smallest step begins to bring you back to yourself. And that is where everything changes, my friend. It's where everything changes. So if this resonates with you, if the story I have shared is stirring something in you, I want you to just stay with me. This is the work we're going to keep doing right here in this space together. Not fixing, not forcing, not judging ourselves, but giving ourselves the opportunity to feel what is true for us, to honor what you need, and to take one step back to yourself. And I am so very honored to walk with you.